we're going to cook some lunch for the guys. We've got chicken drums, bratwurst, and I got pork tenderloin, so nobody should go hungry today.
Alright, we have Troy Pozlowski's truck on the dyno. It's a 2005 with an automatic transmission, full manual valve body, has a 363 with a 68 turbine on a stock manifold, 100 horsepower injectors, and a stock CP3. He knows he'll be pushing the limits of the stock CP3. He just wants a max effort tune. We had sent tunes to a dealer of ours before, and they had installed it. Installed the tunes on it, but he brought it here. He wanted to see dyno numbers and just wanted to make sure that we got the 100% max effort out of it. So I will run it on the tune that's in it now and see what kind of power it makes, and then I will review it and see if we can get any more power out of it. Alright, so the first pull, it made 619 horsepower. Looking at the data log, I should be able to squeeze a little bit more out of it, but his CP3 being stock and having 100 horsepower injectors, it's definitely maxing out the CP3, so I will make adjustments to the tune and see if we can't pick up a little bit more power. Alright, so we are finished with Troy's truck. After making tune revision and making a few changes, we ended up making 626 horsepower and 1,087 foot-pounds of torque. His CP3 was completely maxed out on this last tune, so we won't be able to make any more power until he upgrades his CP3. But 630 horsepower on a stock CP3 with 100 horsepower injectors and the 63 turbo isn't bad numbers at all. So I will get him off the dyno and send him on the way.
Okay, we've got a first gen project here. This is a 1990 truck, originally a VE pump with no intercooler. The customer brought it to us as kind of a unfinished project. This was a frame off truck that he had started himself, and he reinforced the frame, and he's a pipe fitter, so he's wanting it to pull his fifth wheel camper and maybe a welder on the bed. So it needs a truck that needs to actually do some work. And it's got a 12 valve motor that he's bought a 215 pump on it. Maybe it's a 180 pump actually. 180 pump and Enterprise engine, did the engine. It's nothing fancy. It's pretty close to a stock rebuild. Just went through with new starter, new alternator, just replacing everything top to bottom. Had the NV4500 rebuilt. It's a dual disc South Bend clutch. But the shop that was putting it together before was kind of like done on a buddy deal, and they were having some problems getting it actually done. And there's a lot of stuff that are either missing or not put together correctly, so we'll have to kind of take it apart and make sure that the pilot bearing's in the clutch, because it's still out of it, and just take it apart, put it back together correctly, make sure everything's good. And then there's a lot of loose ends to tie up. All the wiring harness is all apart, the cluster's out of the dash, there's no seats in it. The tunnel by the transmission is cut out to fit the NV4500. So we've got a good bit of work on it. I expect that we're going to get a couple weeks into it just to get the thing running first, and then there's going to be all the finished product stuff is going to take a little bit of time to get the inner fenders. He's adding an intercooler, so we got to make sure that it fits the grill up front. It'll be a fun little project, but when it's all done, we'll have a pretty nice first gen.
Well, we're kind of updating a few and eliminating a few and all that stuff.
Oh man.
Look at that.
No,
Look at that.
It's not tight.
Look at that, Jerome. Good job, Jerome.
Man, I actually broke a sweat today.
So I just turned backed in here, my satellite XM radio turned off, and then my screen pops up and it says the no satellite signal received, would you like to stream over the internet? And I'm like, yes. So I hit OK. Now it's playing XM radio over the internet. I didn't even like enter the shop Wi-Fi password or anything. It's crazy. Okay, we're getting ready to dyno the 19 today. This is a high output Cummins, which is rated at 400 horsepower, 1,000 pound-feet of torque out of the factory. That is a flywheel horsepower rating. So we're actually measuring at the rear tires and figuring out what the power curve looks like and how much power it really makes to the tire. My 2016 was rated at 385 horsepower and it dynoed 342. That tells you there was like a 40 horsepower gap between what the flywheel rating was and what the actual rear wheel horsepower was. So we're going to dyno this. I'm going to do a couple different load strategies. Some of the VGT turbos, they like to have more load on the dyno, so I'll start with a little bit less load, keep adding load, and see what makes the most horsepower on this truck. So stay tuned, and we will get this thing on the dyno. We got to do it for the gram. Got to get our wheels all shiny just for a dyno session. We've got the truck on the dyno. This thing is smart enough that it's fairly angry because it turns off the brake ABS. It has to turn, basically every light on the dash is on because I've got the thing rolling and no wheel speed in the front. So, but it lets me turn traction control off. I can dyno it, get full power. I'm gonna have video the boost gauge so you guys can see how much boost it makes during a run, and we'll get this baseline test done. Water temp's at 192. As soon as it comes back down, I'm gonna make it work really hard. I'm gonna do full load and just sweep it through the run real slow. What do you think it'd make if we'd spray it? Think we get 500 horsepower out of it?
How much did we make on Drew's? How much did we pick up on that?
I don't know.
A lot?
Did what, 517 on his?
I bet it'd do 500.
In case you're wondering, it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, or it's like 10 millimeter bolts to take out to get the air filter out. That's what it comes with. We have all of 780 miles on this thing, and this is, I think, what you need to do to hit it with some nitrous. So we're gonna zip tie this thing back and see if it wakes it up a little bit.
That was a lot of nitrous.
436 is nitrous right here at the end. The air bugs shut.
508, baby. Okay, we got the baseline pulls done. I think we did 5 pulls, and the first pull did 372 horsepower, and that was with the least amount of load, kind of how we run on a big single charger. This dyno has a stabilized time where we can bring it up to, say, 2200 RPM, whatever RPM we want to start it at. The dyno holds it at that RPM, and we can go full throttle, get full boost, and then it sweeps it through the run relatively quickly. That generally yields the best horsepower on a non-variable vane turbo truck. But the variable vane turbo trucks, they really like load. I think the engine detects load, it opens the vanes further, makes more boost, and everything's happier. So first pull did 372. And the last pull on the 5th, every time I increased load and increased horsepower, and we ended up at 392 horsepower. And that was at 896 pound-feet of torque. So I'm pretty happy with that. That is only like 8 horsepower off of the advertised flywheel horsepower. So I would say that is a little bit of a conservative rating from Cummins. and the power curve is extremely flat. If you look at this power curve back here, you can see that it literally makes the exact same power from 2,000 RPM to 3,000 RPM. It's just straight flatline power, and it defuels pretty hard right at 3,000 RPM. Power falls off. So once we can get access to the ECM, I'm guessing we can extend that fueling limiter up to 4,000 RPM. I mean, really, we don't need that much RPM because the turbo is not going to be efficient up there. So with a stock truck, really the biggest gains are by adding timing. We can pick up a good bit of horsepower by just adding in, ignition timing, or injection timing, sorry, and that'll also pick up torque. But we also then have the factory limitations of the engine and head gasket, etc. But we'll have to find that out at a later time. So we thought it would also be fun to put a little bit of nitrous to it. The truck has like 780 miles on it, and why not, I guess. So we propped the air filter open, and Larson hit it with a good shot of nitrous, and it did 508 horsepower and almost 1,100 foot-pounds of torque with nitrous. So that's just taking all the fuel that the stock programming has. It added 116 horsepower. So if you need a push-to-pass button on a 2019, just put a single stage of nitrous on it and grab a button. But yeah, thanks for watching. This will be fun as we go forward. We can develop new parts and we get into some tuning. We can hopefully wake these trucks up a little bit. I think they'll be pretty responsive. We made a Facebook post before we put the truck on the dyno saying whoever guesses the closest horsepower and torque combined will win free tickets to the Outlaw Diesel Revenge event coming up in a week and a half. And the winner of that is David Beener. I think I'm saying your last name right, B-E-N-E-A-R. He guessed 1,288 as the combined, and we had 392.8 horsepower and 896 foot-pounds of torque. So congratulations on your weekend passes. If you get a hold of me, I will make sure that you get your name at the gate, and I will get you a weekend pass in for free at the event. And because of the horsepower being 392.8, that rounds it up 1 point. I'm also going to pass out a weekend pass to the guy whose guess was 1,289, and that was Jared Amend. So congratulations to both of you guys for winning weekend passes, and we can't wait to see you guys at the Outlaw Diesel Revenge May 31st, June 1st at Killcare Raceway.